Sometimes I say my love to you all. To you all. You've heard me say that before? My love to you all, especially towards the end of meetings. So my love to you all. Now, that is a personal expression. That is Tom saying that he's sending his well wishes and his love and affection to you all. But there is no real individual Tom and Tom's love. So we are all just the universal expression. There's only the universal expression. It appears limited and personal, but there's only the universal. So when I say my love to you all, yes, that's my personal expression, but that is the universal expression. It's non-personal. And when we're still and silent together, that is the love, that is the peace. And when we talk about it, if we're glued and keyed into the concepts only, when we talk about it, we lose the peace because we're trying to access that peace through the mind, through the thoughts, through the concepts. But the mind comes and goes, doesn't it? When the mind is still, temporarily it's not there, so it's gone. And when the mind resumes, it's here again. So the mind comes and goes. It's a transient happening. It's no more you than a bird flying through the sky. It too is universal action. So one of the reasons I'm saying this, because it can seem like that because I'm holding the meeting, because this meeting has got my name banded across the top of it, as it were, it can seem that it's something to do with me. And it is something to do with me. It's something to do with Tom, something to do with Tom Das. He's teaching, he's sharing something. But it's in the same way that all personal action is just universal action. This is nothing to do with Tom. It's not about Tom knowing something special, having something special, being something special. Tom is not a source of wisdom or a source of knowledge. There's just the universal. There's only one teacher. There's only one guru. That guru is within and without. In this sense, without just means it's external as well as internal. The external and internal aren't real. They're just conceptual distinctions. There's no real inside outside. There's just what is. And that is what is. And we can call that the guru if we want. But the teacher, the guru, and the taught, the student, the teacher and the taught are the same. They're just one movement. There's no distinction. When you take yourself to be separate from the teacher or the taught, you take yourself to be the teacher, or if you take yourself to be the student, then you're creating separation, seemingly. But there's just this universality that is what is, appearing local and personal. So some of you might have seen a couple of my recent Facebook posts. I posted in a couple of forums and I was just asking people what their ideas were about spirituality. And a lot of the notions of spiritual teachers are that a spiritual teacher has some sort of special understanding, some special clarity, some special knowledge. And I'm not sure that's true. Now, there can be clarity that arises when the ego is not acting. That the ego is a distorting factor. So when the ego is not manifesting, there's just clear seeing, intelligence, wisdom, then yes, that body-mind entity, or that apparent body-mind entity, will appear to be wiser in some aspects. That's just a consequence. That's just a consequence of the distorting factor being removed. It's like if someone's wearing spectacles, like I am today, and there's something distorting the vision, maybe a piece of dirt or something obscuring the lens in some way. The we can say the vision is clouded in some way. The vision is obscured. Removing that, the vision is clear. Does that mean that that person is something special? No, it doesn't. It just means clear seeing's happened and the healthy functioning has just been restored. That's not the same as someone special or powerful or amazing. With what I'm sharing, when there is no sort of, there's no ego, there's no sense of a me or concept of a me acting, and there's no egoic desire. There is no egoic desire. There's no desire based on that separation. Then there's just clear seeing. And then action is spontaneous. Thoughts are spontaneous. Decisions are spontaneous. So there's no individual there doing anything. So there's no entity who has wisdom, but their wisdom can manifest. Clarity can manifest. But there's no ownership of that. You can't credit, Tom can't take credit for that, because that just happens. So that's my understanding or my experience of being a teacher, is that it's a spontaneous happening, just like any other spontaneous happening, just like any other happening. The difference is the belief that there's a me entity doing it isn't there. Whereas if ignorance is operating, the belief in a me entity is there. In both cases, there's no entity there. It's just in one case there's a commentary that I'm doing things, and that commentary is believed. In silence, when we allow the mind to be quiet, that commentary dies down. And so the obscuration, like we said, like the piece of dirt or the piece of dust on the spectacles, that temporarily falls away. And then clear seeing can arise. Now, if you're trying to be quiet, then you're creating more obscuration. That's more egotism. So then that basic, essential, primal egotism, like a splinter in your foot, persists and continues to cause suffering and distortion. But naturally, that egotism can fall away, and it does throughout our days, throughout our life. It falls away at times, and then there can be clear seeing. That clear seeing is silence, and even though it appears to be personal, it's non-personal. if we look at the spiritual search and the spiritual seeker who's undertaking a spiritual search, we see some basic assumptions, some basic underlying beliefs. They're the belief in an individual or separate me, who's the seeker, who's living in a world outside of them, an external real world outside of them. So we've got a seeker, an independent seeker living in a world. This is the basic duality, the subject-object duality between a me and a world, yeah, that are separate to each other in some way, some fairly fundamental way. And then, so you've got a me, a belief in a me, living in a world, who's then, if you're a seeker, you're then seeking something. Maybe liberation, maybe enlightenment, maybe nirvana. You can insert your spiritual goal here. So these are the basic assumptions that underlie the spiritual search. And one way of cutting through all this is to question, or to not allow yourself to assume those beliefs and assumptions are true. Is there a me? Is there a world? And is there liberation? In terms of non-dual pointers, this may manifest as teachings or pointers such as there is no you, there is no world, there is no liberation. But actually, if I say to you, there is no world, or there is no you, or there is no liberation, look and see what can happen. One of a couple of things can happen. One thing that can happen is you can go, oh yeah, there's no me, there's no separate world, there's no liberation, and you can just come straight back to the now, which is perhaps the intention of the pointing. But what else can happen is that you can think, oh my gosh, this guy Tom, he's got some special knowledge, hasn't he? Tom has now got some special, he knows there's no separate me. He is a person, Tom, he is a person, and he knows there's no separate me. He knows there's no world, and he knows there's no liberation. So actually, Tom has got some special knowledge, some special understanding that I don't have, and I want to be like Tom. So what have you done then if you hear it that way? You have then assumed that you're a you, that Tom's a you, or Tom's a me, and you've said Tom has got this special knowledge, let's call that liberation, enlightenment. He's out there in the world, I'm operating in the world, I need to get me some of that. So the pointers which are aimed to remove the subject-object duality, the seeker-guru duality, the duality between unenlightenment or non-enlightenment and enlightenment, or not liberated and liberation, the pointers that are aimed to remove those distinctions actually end up fueling it. You see that? Because it can seem like through me talking about it, or any teacher or speaker or person talking about this, it can seem like, oh, that person has got something special. Whereas really what it is, it's not that I've got anything special, it's just the falling away of the belief in these underlying assumptions, they are assumptions, they're beliefs. And so what I'm left with is less than what you have if you're ignorant, if you're operating in that ignorance, or if that ignorance is seemingly operating. You, if you are ignorant, have those beliefs in a me living in a world seeking something like enlightenment. And I just don't have that. So there's no sense of a me, world, or liberation, even though the appearance is appearing as it's appearing. And even though concepts are being utilized by Tom, seemingly, it's just spontaneous. So really, I don't know if there's a self or no self. I don't know if there's liberation or no liberation. And I don't know if there's a world or no world. It's not about me knowing there is a world or there is no world. It's not about me knowing there is a self or there is no self. It's not about me knowing there is a separate me, there is no separate me. It's not about me knowing anything, that there is liberation, there isn't liberation. There's just actually a lack of concern or conceptualization or sort of a hypnotic preoccupation or even an addictive preoccupation with these things. It's just a lack of addictive preoccupation with these notions and ideas. So that whole energy, which revolves around the idea of a me in a world seeking something, maybe you're not seeking enlightenment, maybe you're seeking survival, maybe you're seeking security, maybe you're seeking physical security, maybe you're seeking emotional security, maybe you're seeking pleasure. The preoccupation with these things is not there. The addictive preoccupation. There may be preoccupation with these things at a point in time, but it's non-egoic, meaning it's just, when it occurs, it just spontaneously occurs as a manifestation of life, let's say. It's just saying it spontaneously occurs. There's no special knowledge. It's a lack of knowledge. You see the difference? Then if you think, oh, Tom's got that, I need to get that, then you're reinforcing me. If you think, oh, how can I get to where Tom's getting? Then you're reinforcing that me, that duality, you see? This is why the question, who am I, is sometimes used, because it's one of the purposes of who am I is to, instead of jumping on this train of egotism, which are these underlying assumptions of me, world, and something to be sought, like liberation. Instead of jumping onto that conceptual paradigm and going forward, seeking along that paradigm, now you're looking for liberation. You're looking for the technique and the teacher. The who am I question says, oh, wait a sec, is there a me? Is there a world? Is there liberation? Is there anything to be gained? Is there even a me to gain it? And it can be revealed that there is no need for this liberation. Whether it exists or not is immaterial. There's no need for it. There's no need to believe in a me. Whether there is a me or not doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. There's no need to believe in it. And there's no need to believe that in a real outside world. We're not saying there is no me. We're not saying there is no world. We don't even have to say there is no liberation, but we just don't need to know these things. And then there's just spontaneous unfolding of life. And because there's the desire, the egoic desire isn't there, there's a sense of peace and stillness, non-suffering. And there's a sense that this way of living is more wholesome, more beneficial, more natural, and just healthier for the organism, for the physical organism. And so that's what happens.